Welcome to the Fantasy LCS Week 3 preview. My name is Jackson, and hopefully I can help you guys win your fantasy leagues and all the money and bragging rights that come with it. TSM pulled off a 3-0 week, beating GGS, TL, and IMT. TSM looked super clean during the week, and had a very proactive style in their games, allowing Spica and Sorat to roam. Dignitas surprised everyone with a 3-0 week, beating IMT, GGS, and EG. This is surprising considering no one really expected Dignitas to do anything this year, so we'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic about them. EG struggled last week, losing to IMT and Dignitas, both teams they should be beating. We should be careful with their players, hopefully this isn't last year's inconsistency rearing its ugly head. Immortals is a super confusing team. They have games that are super clean and show potential to be one of the playoff teams down the stretch, but they're super inconsistent and look terrible in their losses. Only time will tell with this team, but pay attention if you want to look for waiver wire steals. There's potential with this team.
Insane! Don't flash this. I'm coming on Leona.
I'm coming.
Just came on him.
FlyQuest has a very easy schedule this week with games versus Dignitas, Immortals, and Golden Guardians. All teams on paper they should beat. This is the week where FlyQuest players will most likely net you the most points, so don't hesitate to pick up any of the FlyQuest players if you need a replacement.
Is cum magic or physical damage?
Depends who it comes from.
I hope this isn't another Spica situation where I tell people to drop a jungler on a struggling team and the following week he drops around 28 points a game. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. This applies to almost all the TL players who struggled last week. Don't drop them just yet. They won the lock-in tournament for a reason, they're good, and the team has potential to win it all come time to decide who goes to MSI. Let's not overreact to one bad week. If your jungler is struggling, Dark is interesting. Dignitas plays a lot around him and is totally willing to sacrifice things in lane to help him carry. The King game is a prime example. He weirdly has a high floor as well. If the trend of just playing whatever he feels like continues, there's no hope of your opponent banning for multiple games. Dignitas is a strange team and I'm not sure if I'd recommend hopping on the bandwagon too quickly, but Dardoch might be worth the risk. We've seen him pop off in the past and there's nothing stopping him from doing it again this year, especially if his team is going to play through him like they did in week 2. I'm pretty sold on the bot lane of Neo and Aphromu. They're both third in their respective roles in fantasy scoring. Don't hold on to struggling players if these two are available. Palafox is a good pickup for this week. He's got a crazy easy schedule and this is the week where we'll see how FlyQuest stacks up versus the teams they're expected to beat. Licorice is one of those cases where I have no idea if I should be recommending someone because I have no data on who's actually owned. Most fantasy apps give you a percentage owned stat. My best guess is Licorice is owned, but if for some reason he's not in your league, he's probably going to pop off this week and is well worth the pickup. If you guys have any players you're debating on, please comment about them down below or in r/fantasylcs. The fact that Sleeper doesn't offer percentage owned for players makes it hard to see what's actually on league waiver wires. Frankly, I'm just guessing based off my league and I have no idea if it's actually representative of what's going on in other leagues.
It has to be actually penetrate. It's absolute.
It's true damage.
It hasn't been officially announced, but week 3 should be played on 11.3 again, so week 2 champ pool should be decently representative of what we'll see this upcoming patch. Gangplank, Gragas, and are all options that get through the first ban phase more often than the S tiers of Camille and Renekton. I'd recommend picking or banning any one of these 3 depending on who your top laner or the opposing top laner plays. In the jungle, we saw a big spike in Udyr bans. In week 1, he had 9 plays and 6 bans with a 100% presence rate, whereas in week 2, we saw him get banned 14 times. It's not worth picking or banning in fantasy. I don't see this champ getting played at all if teams are just going to always ban it. We saw a lot of Graves and Lilia, with 9 and 7 picks respectively. It seems the Talia nerfs that came in patch 11.3 were enough to drop a priority. Mid lane was all over the place last week. No champs were heavily banned other than the TF with 6. Azir, Syndra, Ori, and Zoe are all good picks and bans, and there's plenty of diversity in mid right now. Lots of champs are good if you want to try sniping a random pick. In ADC, we saw much of the same. Kai'Sa is still the queen of bot lane and should probably be picked and banned in all cases. Looking at drafts last week, we saw the trend of Kai'Sa getting picked in the first rotation on red side. So if you want to really play the odds, pick 4 and ban against AD carries that have multiple games on red side next week. That includes Sven, Deftly, Johnson, FBI, and Stixxay. Outside of Kai'Sa, we saw lots of fasting Senna paired alongside Tahm Kench and the rise of Duskblade, Essence River, Ezreal. If your AD carry or the AD carry you're playing against is going to be primarily on blue side, you could try picking or banning one of Senna or Ezreal, but Kai'Sa is still probably going to be the safest choice going into week 3. In the support role, engaged champions are still prevalent with mainly Nautilus, Leona, Alistar, Blitzcrank, Tahm Kench, and Thresh being played. Rell is a decent choice seeing how strong she is, but she's banned the most out of all the supports, so it's a riskier option. If the AD carry of the support you own or are facing plays Senna, Tahm Kench becomes a much stronger ban as Tahm is almost always paired with the fasting Senna. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.